Namaste everyone. I welcome you all to today's Yes Talk. The title of today's session is Silence and Surrender. We have with us Mr. Prasad Rangnekar as our guest speaker today. I'll give a brief introduction for him. Prasad Rangnekar is a yoga mindset educator based in India who teaches in over 15 countries for the past 29 years. He has been a student practitioner of yoga for the last 39 years, studying both in traditional lineages as well as academically. He's the founder-director of Yogaprasad Institute and conducts yoga and meditation teacher trainings, mentorship sessions, retreats, and workshops to spread the wisdom of traditional yoga. Being a transformation guide using yogic methods, he is regularly invited to speak at Indian embassies, the European Commission, yoga conventions, schools, corporate bodies, and charity organizations. He has established multiple close knit student communities and self help groups globally and is engaged in various social initiatives, primarily through his Women Yogis of India seminars that raise funds for women focused charities. Welcome, Prasad sir. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Yes platform. We are really grateful. Look forward to this session, sir. Over to you.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Arinima, for all the coordination. Let's close our eyes for a minute. I'm going to chant Om and the Guru Mantra. So if you want to join me, inhale. Om. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. It's an oxymoron that I have to speak about a topic on silence, but as we know, there are words for some things and there are some things beyond words. And we have to see what to take from what. So since we have started with such an oxymoron, I would like to start with a quote that I wrote. So if you want to internalize it, close your eyes and just allow yourselves to internalize the words. When you are quiet, very quiet, the world you have created in your mind, the world you have built around you, melts away. When you are quiet, very quiet, you don't fear loss, because this very loss brings forth what you've always had. This silence is the seed of a new beginning. The melting, the fading, the dissolving reveals the you to you. So I wrote this around 12 years ago after my 5 months of silence retreat. When Dr. Saab invited me to speak in this forum, I was wondering what to talk about, because spirituality being such a wide topic. But then I said, since it's an educational forum and we are all seekers, students, practitioners over here, I just want to share my journey with you. I am a seeker myself, and I will live as a seeker till whenever it wants to bring out whatever it wants to bring out from me. So I just want to share with you all two modalities, practices that have helped me a lot in my own journey as a sadhak and are still helping me. Those two modalities or practices are sadhana, sorry, practices are silence and surrender. I'm so used to telling my students, do your sadhana, that the sadhana just comes in my mind. So, two practices that help me as sadhana are silence and surrender, mauna and samarpan. Uh, I'm going to share from my experience. Yes, silence, and through silence, surrender has been two of the most important aspects of my sadhana. I may not be logically able to give you an explanation as to why silence is crucial for me, but I remember since my childhood, I loved to be by myself, to sit alone. I remember as a student, I used to take my textbook and go to the terrace of our building. And I used to tell my mom, I'm going to the terrace to study. But I would just go to the terrace and just sit there quietly with myself. I didn't know what it meant. I was maybe in the third standard or fourth standard. But I used to love that feeling, that bhava. I didn't even know what to call it. But I used to just love being by myself. In fact, sometimes in the evenings when the other kids from the building would not turn up for playing together, I would be very happy. I would sit on the water tank, you know, and just be with myself quietly. And it would be as if I live in Mumbai, okay? So you can imagine the whole sound of the busy street, and my building was just next to a very, very busy highway, very busy signal actually. It would just melt away. And I would sometimes lie down on the tank looking up at the Akash. And I didn't know. I mean, but later on in my life, I started remembering this feeling because as a kid, I used to just enjoy it and just let it go, you know. I didn't even know what spirituality was and what this feeling is and all that. Around 16 years ago, I remember I expressed a desire to my mother that I wanted to go in silence for 9 months. I don't know how this idea came up. And my mother was shocked, of course, like any mother would be. And she looked at me and she said, after I die, you do whatever you want to do. Perhaps a typical answer from Indian moms. And so I did actually. In 2012, my father and mother passed away in quick succession within 3 months of each other's death. And in 2013, I went into my first long silent retreat for 2 months. I'm sharing all this with you because silence is a very important aspect of my sadhana. Silence has revealed to me more than perhaps what my scripture study and philosophy study has revealed. As the Dakshinamurti Stotra says, Gurostu maunam vyakhyanam, shistastu, shishyastu chinna sanshaya. The Guru reveals through silence, and the students' doubts are chinna, destroyed. Well, I've always been a spiritual reader, as perhaps all of us, you know, just buying books left, right, and center and reading some half, some full. Uh, Silence helped me to become a poet from a philosopher. There was a time in my life when I was so busy in philosophical wranglings and comparing Siddhanta after Siddhanta, my head used to be exhausted. My brain would be as if releasing fumes. And I have a very vivid memory of this heavy-headedness. And then a voice came over in my heart to be quiet. Even my guru revealed to me in his typical authoritarian sense, just sit, don't do anything. First, I did not know if I have to trust this voice, but on repeated, it was on repeat, like a song on repeat. And then these memories of me sitting on the water tank in my building started coming up. And I said, no, there's something out there. I mean, something in here actually. I need to pay some attention to these things that's coming up. And over last 12 years, since my parent passed away, so that is since 2013, I've been doing silence retreats every year without fail, ranging from 2.5 months to 5 months. I hope my sharing on silence and surrender via silence is of some help to fellow seekers out there. Now, theoretically in our culture, mauna is understood as a vrata, a vow or an observance. And every vrata has a certain hetu or a sadhya, an aim, and there is a sadhana. But for me particularly, the aim and the journey or the sadhya and the sadhana is the same. I go in silence to become silent. I go in mauna to realize mauna avastha. So it is not something that I'm walking towards, it is something that happens in the here and now. Mauna is the marga and mauna is the dheya in my experience. But more than a vrata, because many times in our culture, we can do vrata and that vrata has no implication on our lives. People can do vratas very mechanically because it's a cultural practice, not spiritual. For me, though, it is more than a vrata. My journey of silence never started because I wanted something from some god or from life. No, I just heard the call of my heart, intuition, inner voice, whatever you want to call it, and I just said yes to that. For me, mauna is a tapasya. In fact, Shiva Purana calls mauna as a tapasya. Even Bhagavad Gita, the Adhyaya 17 calls mauna as tapas. And I identify with this definition a lot because mauna was not easy. I was a child who, if I have to think of now, was born in a heavy, heavy state of abandonment. If you ask me, what was my sense or feeling or bhava since I became conscious, so to say, it was of abandonment. And then internalized anxiety and the goal and the restless going out there and achieving and all that. Mauna and me, it was impossible. And it was not easy too. And that's why for me it is a tapasya. The silence that I'm talking about was not so easy for the person that I was, a person with a frantic flight and fight response, a person who could not sit in one place for even 2 minutes. I was like a butt of jokes in my family, and all the cousins used to gather in summer vacations together. I was Prasad who can never sit in one place for even 2 seconds. And for that person to go and lock himself up in one small apartment for 2 months was difficult. And that's why it is a tapasya. But it did reveal something to me that, like I said, no theoretical framework would have revealed. And I'm very, very thankful for that. And the silence that I want to share about today, the mauna that I want to share about today, perhaps might be a little different because my experience, my anubhava is my teacher, so perhaps it might be a slightly different idea. Why am I saying this is because when we say mauna or silence, many people think of something extreme, you know, like we have these Mauni Babas who don't talk for 40 years, or people go to Vipassana. Many people nowadays confuse Mauna as Vipassana and nothing else. But for me, if you ask, Mauna is a continuum. Mauna is not a state of experience in one particular time frame. Mauna is not something extreme for me. Mauna is a process. And there is an equal opportunity for seekers of every kind to participate in this Mauna in their own way. And I'll tell you how the spectrum for me is. I'll tell you how Mauna is a spectrum, a continuum from here to there. There's a range of silence that one can really, really participate in. Why am I saying this? Is because for a generation like ours that is bombarded by sensory stimulus, in fact, overtly bombarded by sensory stimulus, whose attention span is gradually decreasing. For us urban folks who are exhausted by life, who are staring at a screen for hours on in the day, who are heavily restless in their sleep, Mauna is an invitation. And for me, Mauna is an invitation to rest. It starts with rest. It doesn't have to be. I confess, I started off very, very in an extreme way. My first Mauna Sadhana was locking myself in an apartment for 55 days, and I was provided food every Friday, and that's it. But I started off on an extreme, and then I tempered it down. But for all of us, for general seekers out there, I want to introduce the idea of Mauna, silence, as an invitation to rest. I'm inviting you all to just sit with yourself. This is what I call it. This initial phase of Mauna Sadhana, I call it as just sitting with yourself. It is an opportunity to rest, relax, and unwind by just being. Because what has happened is we are so wired to activity that even our definition of rest is active. Even our definition of relaxation is stimulating. Like people go for a run to unwind. People watch an action movie to relax. Right? I mean, we are very much part of streaming generation. So we really have confused it somewhere. We are looking at rest as distraction. Just look away, look somewhere else. And that's why I really want all of us to give rest a chance by unwinding, by going slow and going solo. Why am I saying going slow and going solo? Is because even if you take your dog for a walk, You are still in a relationship. Sometimes the dog drags you, sometimes you drag the dog, and then you're looking around that no other stray dogs are going to pounce on your dog. Again, that's not rest. I mean, go for a walk with your dog. That's another thing, but don't call it rest. Don't call it more. And that's why I want to give this definition that I have given it to myself as just sit with yourself. Whenever I tell my students, just sit with yourself, the first question is, and do what? I said, no, just sit. And I'm saying this out of my own prakriya. I did this for 6 years. I was, when I started meditating, I was in this, productive mode. I wanted to nail the meditation techniques. And for 3 years, I struggled with closed eyes, trying to feel like a Buddha, Buddha statue. And then I realized I'm just stuck on a particular state. I'm just stuck on wanting to cultivate my mind like someone else. For 3 years, I struggled. And then I gave up. I literally gave up meditating. And I made my own definition for myself. I said, Prasad, you're not going to meditate. You're just going to sit. And in the local Bombay dialect, we call it doing time pass. I literally used to sit and do time pass. How about, walking somewhere, you have this bench somewhere, park bench, or, these benches on the streets. I would just sit, look, things happening with no judgment. The car is coming, going, the man is walking, going, suddenly pollution, suddenly too much sound. Just watch. I did this for 6 years. 6 years, I trained myself to get bored. For 6 years, I trained myself, and it was extremely difficult. For the first 4.5 years, it was extremely difficult to just sit because my mind was like, okay, you're sitting, and what will you do? Where is the numbers, Oh, you go to the gym, you run on a treadmill, you burn 200 calories. Yay, there is some number behind it. Okay, you do asanas and you do 20 poses, there's some calculation behind it. But here I was just doing time pass, just going for a walk and coming. How many steps? Don't know. How much time? Don't know. This made me comfortable. This made that super active, restless, hyper rajasic Prasad sit and do nothing. Be comfortable with sit and do nothing. Because my father was extremely productive. And I remember, now perhaps all of you know that I was a daydreamer. Even at home, I would sit and look at the ceiling and get lost in my thoughts. And my father would immediately, what are you sitting there? Go do something. I'm sure many of us have grown up on this conditioning. Don't just sit there, do something conditioning. So it was very difficult, of course, to get out of this idea that I can actually sit and while away my time and get bored. And I got bored. I got so bored. And I allowed myself to get bored till the time I was just okay to get bored. Since then, sometimes I reached, perhaps in Delhi, Bombay, traffic is so unpredictable. Sometimes you calculate your time to the airport and suddenly there's no traffic and you reach like 3 hours earlier. I'm so happy just sitting at the gate. I just go at the gate and just sit there for 3 hours, just sitting, just sitting, just sitting. So somewhere silence has helped me decondition myself from this need to be productive all the time. Even when I instruct my students to sit and do nothing, many people, and I have also gone through, okay, you sit on a chair and wanting to do nothing, and your eyes are open, and then suddenly you see this corner of your apartment that needs some dusting. And then you get up and take a mop and you dust away. And you're like, I was not supposed to move. But it's when you're sitting, you just notice, Arey, I've not done some pocha on that table since last 2 weeks. But then you've already told yourself not to move. But then, productivity conditioning. That's why sitting, doing nothing, holding this discomfort should be taken up as a learning experience. And in my experience, creating time for mauna, allowing yourself to just relax and be, gives us two things which are extremely important. Number one, opportunity, and number two, atmosphere. When you allow yourself, okay, I'm purposely using the term allow because rest has to be conscious. Mauna is a sadhana, and sadhana is done mindfully. So we have to allow ourselves to rest. Otherwise, there will be 100 things that will become number one, number two, number three priority. So when we allow ourselves to rest, we give ourselves an opportunity to realize that it is possible to have a calm state of mind. And that being frantic and anxious all the time is not a necessity. This was, for me, my biggest lesson from my experiments with silence. To become comfortable with the idea that a hyper alert, anxious fight and flight response need not be our operating system. Unfortunately, we just have taken it as a matter of fate that, how can the mind calm? Sometimes when I do corporate seminars, people are like, but is it really possible to calm down the mind? Because we have just accepted the fact that no, my mind is going to run on fourth gear for the rest of my life. The more we give ourselves the permission to rest, to unwind, to just be, we realize the importance of rest. So it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity that is literally hiding in each and every moment. Go a little earlier for your next flight and just sit. The second point that I made is atmosphere. Giving yourself the opportunity to be quiet gives you the atmosphere, inner atmosphere, to experience a state of mind, sensations, and subtle faculties that we all have innately. It's like now we are surfing on the waves on the surface. So we have no idea about the deep sea fishes. It's like that. When you become quiet, the submarine of your awareness gradually dips down. And you are like, wow, this ecosystem I would have never seen if I would not have gotten into the submarine. Same way, when we sit, when we become quiet, we come into the zone of feeling, bhava. We are becoming more and more thinking being. As anxiety, as uncertainty increases in our life, we become thinking beings. We don't become feeling beings. And our culture is based so much in bhava. The whole bhakti parampara is based in bhava. Why bhakti? Everything is the whole yogic spirituality, the whole Indic spirituality is based in bhava. But when we are in the buzz over here, the bhava of the heart just shuts off. Doesn't perhaps shut off, but the clamor of the mind is so loud that the soft voice of bhava in our heart is just inaccessible. So this was my experience. But funnily enough, last year I did this uh, challenge for my subscribers online. I called it 6-week Mauna Sadhana Challenge. Okay. And it's all newbies, people who have never done Mauna before. They just, it was available, and so they all jumped in. Fantastic. So the idea was every Monday for 6 weeks, they would get some prompts and they had to do that. Prompts that gradually increased in intensity, silence prompts. And the feedback that I got was just stupendous, just so encouraging. And I summarized the feedback into 3 main points. Number one, people said that they had to, 3-4 weeks out of the 6-week email newsletter sadhana challenge, out of 6 weeks, 3-4 weeks went in just finding time to sit quietly. But once they found the time to sit quietly, they said the mind functioned more efficiently. And these are newbies, okay? These are complete neophytes. Their learning experience was that my rested mind could function more efficiently at work and at home. I was a better mother. I was a better father. In fact, I remember a couple of them also told me in the language of physics, they said the time was expanding. And the final conclusion that most of them had, that yes, calmness is a choice. It's not a consequence. We have to give ourselves the permission to just be quiet. And it was beautiful for me to see how people just grab this opportunity. I have a very dear friend who, one of my very good friends. And I remember we met after the 6 weeks and we were sitting in the car and he was like, "What was that?" I said, "What? You just sat, you just sat down without doing anything for just 15 minutes in the day and you feel so expanded in your head." So incredible. So for me, the biggest outcome here was that empowering outcome is that people realized that number one, a frantic state of mind doesn't need to be the default state of mind. And number two, that yes, they are not completely imprisoned by their roles, their duties, their responsibilities. They have some power of choice, ichha shakti. And this is extremely important, dear friends. The reason why many of us feel bogged down by life itself is because life has become so stressful and so dense that the more life becomes dense, the less we realize we have any chance to change it. So it is just 6 weeks of silent sadhana gave them a little ray of hope that no, I am not a slave to my circumstances. I can sit quietly, feel peaceful, and be efficient at least for 15-20 minutes in my day. And that itself was enough for all of them. It is possible. And I have a choice to do something about my mind, to do something about my life. And this is extremely important because the world is not becoming any easier, and the more the anxiety increases, the more we we get into this isolationistic mindset. A mind that is in a frantic fight and flight cannot think of others. It just wants to run and save itself. And I call this an isolationistic mindset. Feeling bogged down by life's responsibilities makes us come in the head more than our heart. One feels alienated, separate. This is why we see a lot of us versus them narrative coming up in the world across the world, everywhere. This is the isolationistic alienation feeling that comes up when we start living too much in the head. And when you sit quietly and realize that I have it's a little chance, but I have a chance to do something about it. I have this little Ichha Shakti that I can water and allow it to flower and see where my life goes with it. This positivity, which I call cheerfulness, harmonizes our body-mind complex. Cheerful. Prasade sarvadukhanam hanirasyopajaayate prasanna chetaso yashu buddhi paryavatishtate. Bhagavad Gita says, prasanna chetaso yashu buddhi paryavatishtate. When your mind is prasanna, your buddhi is stable. Even where I come from, Maharashtra, we have this Saint Tukaram, I'm sure you've heard of him. He says, Mana karare prasanna sarva siddhi che sadhana. आपके मन को प्रसन्न कीजिए, वो आपको सब सिद्धियां लाके देगा. This kind of cheerfulness is extremely important in our lives, is needed in our lives, so we can do what we ought to do. From the narrative of Bhagavad Gita, if we want to live a life of dharma, we need to be in a cheerful state of mind, a prasanna chitta. This is when this is when the mind becomes sama. One of the definitions of yoga in Bhagavad Gita is samatvam yoga uchyate. A sama mind. Sama mind means equanimous. Sama mind doesn't mean hardened. Sama mind has a very beautiful state of balance. When life knocks you down, you will move, but you will come back like that toy. Have you seen that toy? You punch it, it will go down and then come up. This is very, 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 very important according to me. Because when one comes in this state of mind, something beautiful happens. When the cheerful component of your mind increases, the drishti changes. And I'll tell you how it changes. When your mind becomes more calm, more cheerful, viveka shines through. a certain discernment naturally arises. And in my experience, you start seeing the hand of God in everything. And I'll give you a simple analogy. It's like when you're so busy in your head, you don't notice the beauty of the surrounding. Has this ever happened to you? Like sometimes, you are in a beautiful garden and but some people are discussing their business on the phone. Kya ho raha hai? And you are in the beautiful garden, beautiful flowers, and they are on the phone closing some deals. I see that many times when I go on vacations. When family comes in, the kids and everybody they are enjoying, but the dad or the mom, whoever, on the phone somewhere else. Beautiful flower, beautiful garden, completely oblivious. Exactly the same thing happens. When your mind is in the buzz, you stop noticing the beauty, the divine beauty everywhere. But when your mind calms down and becomes cheerful, you start seeing the hand of God in everything. The seeker starts differentiating between the Sat and Asat. Seeker starts differentiating between the transient and the permanent. When your mind stays cheerful more and more, you start seeing the hand of God even more. It's not easy, okay? It's not like boom. It takes time. It takes a long time. And then one actually starts seeing magic. Magic in the sense, the effortlessness with which things are happening around. The flowers are blooming, the birds are chirping. When you sit with your chai in the morning, looking at the tree outside your window, you can see that the world is functioning very beautifully by itself. When you don't rush, you see the beautiful harmony in the world. And then something beautiful happens. Your faith lightens up. Shraddha comes up. Why Shraddha comes up? Because you actually see the hand of God in everything. You see the divine, you notice the divine creation. You actually see that there is life beyond this headset that I'm wearing. The headset of my own beliefs, on my own ideas, and my own conditioning. And the more you start noticing this magic, this divine ecosystem around you, the more you start trusting it. There is only one equation in my life, spiritual: faith versus fear. When the fear reduces, faith increases. When the faith increases, fear reduces. In fact, the slogan that I have given to all my family members is, let your faith be stronger than your fear. And this exactly happens. When you become quiet, when you slowly pull back from the fear response, your mind flowers in Shraddha. And the more you continue in this state, the Shraddha deepens, deepens to such a level that you just start feeling that I am just an instrumental cause, nimitta karana, as they say. Yeah, I am important. I do what I ought to do, but I am a beautiful channel for the work of the divine. You literally become a vessel. And I don't know how to explain this. Not that my experience of this is perfect or something like that, but there are moments of this magic when your resonance is equal to the resonance of the universe. And you just feel like you're being carried, like how a child wants to, or a dog perhaps, wants to jump into the hands of the mother or father and just wants to be carried when they are tired. You feel like that. You really feel that you are just a nimitta karana, an instrumental cause, and you just move on with your life like that. Because all you see is the hand of God in everything. All you see is what I call kripa, the grace. And awareness of this kripa makes you more and more aligned with your karma. Karma means your actions. And this finally, somehow, gradually leads to what I call surrender. Here, surrender doesn't mean surrender to something. Here, surrender also doesn't mean defeat. Usually our understanding of surrender is somebody wins, somebody is defeated. But here, surrender is really not a nice word. Samarpan is a very beautiful word. Or prapatti is an even better word. You really feel carried. You see, there is no need to fight. You don't you don't feel like you're swimming against the flow of the river. Your whole life you've lived swimming against the flow of the river. And now you've just turned yourself and you allow yourself to be carried with the flow. Just imagine this situation. The river is flowing like this, and you're trying to flow upstream. You don't know why, but you've been told you have to swim upstream. Even if it causes you to be tired, you have to flow upstream. And then you realize, I don't have to. So what do? You don't do anything. You just give up moving your hands and your legs, and you just turn and you just allow yourself to be carried by the flow. This I call as samarpan. This I call as surrender, where your anxieties and worries dissolve and there is no need to control. This is a state of inner surrender. It can only be experienced, but the magic can be experienced in little, like they say, bite-sized. Like sometimes when you want things to happen, they happen. And sometimes when you want things to happen, they may not happen. But that is also okay. Ishwaricha. This is how life becomes lighter. The whole idea of me talking to you about silence and surrender was life is getting heavier and heavier. It is essential that we become lighter and lighter. Okay. And I want to end with Santa Tukaram's one more small line. It's in Marathi, but I'll translate. Tukaram says, तुका म्हणे उगी राहावे जे जे होईल ते ते पहावे चित्ती असू द्यावे समाधान. Means Tukaram says, just be quiet. Whatever happens, whatever is happening, just observe and keep your mind samadhana. Samadhana here doesn't mean content. Samadhana here means sama, calm, stable, and centered. Okay? That's all, dear friends. I don't know what questions I can answer, but if you have anything to ask, feel free. All I have done is shared my experience. That's it. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Prasad sir, for this enlightening session. And we are really grateful that you shared your personal experiences with all of us.
Thank you.
And just listening to you felt so peaceful in itself. Really, thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much. Thank you.
And as you said, we can check with the participants if anyone has a question or anyone wants to share something. Please go ahead. You can drop your messages in the chat box. I can read it out, or you can unmute yourself and speak up.
Yes, Ruchi.
Thank you, Prasad, for this beautiful
Thank you.
talk.
Thank you
I've
so much.
been your virtual follower since a long time.
Oh, thank you.
And, even requested you to hold up a retreat or a meetup for yoga teachers in Delhi, which you recently hosted in Bangalore.
Yes, if I come to Delhi, I'll definitely do it.
And the good thing is, I was a part of this 6 weeks of the
Oh, you
online
were
thing.
okay. Great, great.
So, Prasad, my query is very simple. I have
Hmm.
been a practitioner of transcendental meditation since past 6, 7 years now. And when I practice, I have seen best of the ideas coming during that time of meditation and all that. But here, when we talk about mon, I see that this mon that we are talking about is something that can be experienced with open eyes also, where you are
Hmm.
just, you know, uh, being with just being and
Hmm.
not even going as per a laid down technique of a particular meditative process.
Correct, correct.
My understanding correct? Or
Yes, absolutely. Uh, this, what I'm talking about is a non-reactive state with open eyes. Non-reactive. Like I said, I go sit at the gate of my flight and I don't, I mean, people are boarding, somebody is coming, somebody is going, somebody asked me, is this flight? I said, no, yes. Just, just don't go with it.
just be
That's
there.
it. Just that's it.
And I think with open eyes, it's all the more challenging or, much more experiential.
Yeah, correct. But here, open eyes, closed eyes doesn't mean anything because even with our eyes closed, we can see a whole movie, right? Even when you are meditating, it's not like you don't get, it doesn't have to be some divine visions or whatever. But
Correct.
we are all visual people. We live in a visual world. There will be no emptiness initially, at least. So, close eyes, open eyes doesn't matter. What is important is non-reactiveness to what happens. That we need to cultivate that. Once that is cultivated, you can meditate. Actually, you can do dhyana anywhere, even in your bus. Hmm?
Sure. Thank you.
Participants, does anyone else has a question or any sharing?
I
I
just
just
wanted to connect the link between how silence can lead to Shraddha. Once the mind calms down, you can open up to what is beyond what our mind dictates. Okay, sorry, somebody was asking something.
no, I was just trying to clarify on the point that when you said that we just sit down and just observe, then what, and without judging, so what naturally happens is that you don't react, that doesn't become your nature anymore.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that leads to calmness and like kind of slowing down. So then you had this term cheerfulness. So, I mean, what are the signs of that cheerful? I mean, are you referring to that calmness only as cheerfulness, or did I miss something? I
Yeah,
mean,
no, the calmness is not a somber kind of calmness. There's a certain state of uplifting bhava to it. That's why I call it cheerfulness. And I found a beautiful word, prasanna, in Bhagavad Gita. And then I just said, no, no, this has to be cheerful is the right word. Because prasanna is the right. You see, there is no other word to call. In English, cheerful and prasanna. Prasanna is not stabda. There is a stabda avastha. But prasanna is stable yet effervescent. It's not active, it's not running here and there. It's just calmly. Shivji has this mudra, light smile. Sometimes Buddha is also shown like that. That is prasanna, a calm state of mind which is just resting, but happily resting, you can say. But it's a feeling, it's a bhava. when you experience it, you experience it. That's why describing it is difficult.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You said that one has to have not have fear. But if you're going through a
No,
lot
I
of
did not say one has to. I'm nobody to tell you what to have and
no,
not have.
I mean
I
what
just
we
said
mean
when you increase your faith, fear reduces.
reduces. Okay. So first question is if you're going through a really hard time in life, and there is an immense amount of fear,
Yeah.
what is the way to get yourself to a place where you're not fearful? And second, is it part of just surrendering? Because that feels as if you don't care about what's coming next, which is what makes you fearful and uncertain.
Yeah. So the initial solution to fear is support. Seek support, internal and external both. External, if you're really, really anxious or really fearful because of some event or some trauma, seek support externally from some professional and seek support professional or family or friends, whatever, whoever can support you, and internally from some strong spiritual ideas, affirmations, mantra, or devotion, or whatever. You need to be held. Why am I saying support? Because when you are fearful, you need to be held. And you need to be held in multiple ways, not just professionally or not just by people, but also internally your own state. Okay, so secondly, I talked about surrender, but surrender is the other end of the spectrum. One has to mature to surrender. You can't start with surrender. You have to literally, you have to literally fight your battles and know where you stand and then surrender. That's why even in Bhagavad Gita, the whole narrative of surrender comes later. In 18th chapter, it's maximum surrender. That's surrender completely to me. So Krishna is telling Arjuna, do everything. Go fight, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. And ultimately in the 18th chapter, he says, just surrender completely to me. So surrender is a journey. Samarpan is a journey. If samarpan happens very initially in your life, it is giving up. There is a very, very different flavor to it. The bhav is different. Giving up is different and surrendering is different. So you'll have to go through, person has to go through the journey to come to a state where one surrenders and doesn't feel lost. You surrender and you feel like you've won. This doesn't happen in normal surrender. This only happens in divine surrender. So
So,
give it
so if
time. We need lots of patience for that.
so initially when one feels so fearful of the future or one feels completely uncertain, what is the process to at least start with feeling less fearful and uncertain, knowing that, let's just say, next 2 years are just going to be brutal?
Be very, very honest with yourself and seek support.
And you, by support, you mean external support.
Yes, it's easier to find external support. If your system is in fear, it's difficult to find internal support, because your fear will override that stability. Support means stability, and fear will not make you feel stable. So first you seek support outside.
And if
Then
that external support doesn't seem to be working, then what?
then keep looking. Keep looking.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prasad sir. Dr.
Thank you so
Bijlani
much.
sir, I request you to share your comments, please.
Thank you, Prasadji, for a very timely talk.
Thank you
Because
so much.
in the action oriented world, we have become so obsessed with
Yes.
doing something all the time that
Yes.
pretty early in childhood, even children in school, we not only have a timetable for them in school, at home also we try to sort of have 1 hour slots which we try to fill up with something or
Yes.
the other. So that the
Absolutely.
child also grows up with the idea that there has to be always something to do.
Yes.
And in fact, myself, I am also a workaholic, and I tend to do that if somebody tells me to confess that
Yes.
"Ab aap rest lijiye, I'm going."
Yes.
So I feel as if the person is telling me that now that I'm going, now you can commit the crime of taking rest.
Yeah. Can
But
imagine.
in fact, when you brought out very nicely how doing nothing, being silent, the two go together,
Yes.
uh, can be very useful and productive in our sadhana.
Absolutely.
And this is something which, in fact, traditionally we have been doing, but now the world is becoming more and more uh, fast paced and action oriented. And I think this was a very timely reminder.
Thank you.
Uh, and you brought out some very concrete points about how it can facilitate sadhana. It is when you are silent in terms of mana, not speaking, and also silent within.
Yeah.
That combination of that outer and inner silence can create viveka. It can make us see the hand of God in everything,
Yes.
which is the very basis of surrender.
Yes.
And it increases our shraddha. Now, this is actually illustrating a very important point because normally we associate doing nothing with tamas.
Yes.
But then, what actually particular state is, whether it is tamas or sattva, depends so much on the attitude. So even
Absolutely.
something like doing nothing,
Yeah.
which we consider to be a sort of a hallmark of tamas,
Yes.
if it is done with the right attitude, with the attitude of a spiritual seeking, that very activity becomes sattva. And in fact,
Absolutely.
that happens quite a bit along the sadhana because many things which appeared tamasic start appearing sattvic.
Yes.
Many things which appeared sattvic start appearing rajasic. Now, activity remains the same, but as you progress spiritually on the path or path of spirituality, as you progress, you find that even the way you look at something as tamasic, rajasic, or sattvic starts undergoing a
Yes.
change.
Yes.
See, I mean, when a person is professionally very active, then doing his duty well, he thinks that it is all sattva. He
Yeah.
misses the point that there was a lot of rajas in it.
Yes.
So you see that you see only when you are
Yeah.
a little spiritually evolved. So
Absolutely.
this again becomes a very important general point.
Yeah.
I think I can close with something which came up recently in one of our sessions when we were talking about mental austerity. The mother has talked about the austerity of different parts of the being, including mental austerity. And in mental austerity, in fact, she has emphasized the value of speaking less. Uh, which, of course, I mean, you can understand why she's emphasized this is because no matter whether it is for a day or whether it is for 6 months, keeping totally silent is difficult.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it is easier than speaking only as much as is necessary all the time.
Yeah.
That is what she calls mental austerity. And she brings out the point that there are various reasons for which we talk, but if we reflect upon it, we find that much of that talking was totally unnecessary.
Yeah. Yes.
So I think this is again something which
Absolutely.
goes very well with what you said. And
Thank you so much.
once again, after a few days, I mean, this was just a week or two back that we talked about it
Yes.
on this platform. And while talking about mental austerity, the importance of outer and inner silence, and also speaking only as much as is necessary. So thank you for once again
Thank you so
bringing
much.
it up in a different way, in a different context, and showing the value of both outer and inner silence, and how so many things which are a part of sadhana can emerge from that state of silence.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for the participation. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you.
I would like to inform that the recording of today's session and all Yes Talks are published on our YouTube channel, Yes Spirituality. You can visit the channel and explore extensive content on yoga, education, spirituality, and related subjects like psychology and wellness.
Thank you so much.
Prasad sir, thanks again. Thanks so much once again for sparing your valuable time for all of us.
Thank you. Bye.
Participants, we thank you for being with us today. We'll close today's session with a moment of peaceful silence. Namaste.